This video is on EIA Draft 2020, and we will critically analyze and learn about what are the concerns regarding it. So EIA stands for Environmental Impact Assessment. By looking at this term, you can easily figure out that it has something to do with evaluating or estimating the impacts on environment. For example, let's say I want to start a company. Before that, I have to take so many clearance and no objection certificate from various government departments at multiple level. One such clearance is there for Environment 2. You need environmental clearance certificate before you start any construction project. It is a way of checking or assessing whether or not your construction is causing any damage to the environment. If it is causing, then what is the scale of it? How much can be controlled and what are the necessary precautions that can be taken to protect the environment from such developmental activities? So that is what is the whole idea behind environmental impact assessment. This draft has been proposed by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It is the department of the Government of India that takes care of planning, promotion, coordination and overseeing the implementation of India's environmental and forestry policies and programs. I'll quickly tell you the history behind this draft. The concept of EIA was introduced in 1979. USA was the first country to develop this system. Before that, it was never mandatory for the government or private entities to conduct such kind of assessment before starting a project. It was only required to be done for mega projects like large nuclear plants or hydroelectric plants. Today, EIA is followed in almost all the countries globally, but every country has its own specific conditions and criteria. In India, EIA became a mandatory process after it became part of India's legislation in 1994. Since then, many amendments and modifications have been made by the government to improve or sometimes to dilute the EIA process. The reason the word dilute has been used is because you have to understand that it is very difficult to balance environmental growth with economic development. In simple sense, if I have to explain, to build something you have to destroy something to a certain extent. This is also true in life. Anything good comes with a cost. That is where the concept of cost and benefit analysis came. However, no matter how much you think, there will always be a cost associated with any kind of development. So it is very difficult to balance environmental growth with economic development. And that is where the politicians and policymakers' job gets tough, because they have to keep both the environmentalists and the industrialists happy. See, you need to understand that the government and the environmentalists are considered to be public supporters. Although it is not fully true, but the general perception is that they mean good for the people. So whenever the environmentalists and the government are on a similar page, it is considered as a good move. Whereas, on the other hand, the industrialists are always perceived as greedy, selfish, ignorant, and environment destroyers. So whenever the government and industrialists are on the same page, it is considered as a bad deal or a corrupt deal. So any modification in favor of the environmentalist is seen as a good thing. Anything in favor of the industrialist is considered as dilution or bad deal. Now please don't think that I'm criticizing the government or I'm supporting rapid industrialization or I am an anti-environmentalist. My opinion matters the least. I'm just laying out everything in front of you and explaining it in simple terms. Anyhow, the first draft was rolled out in 1994. As usual, anything that you do for the first time is not going to be perfect. The only thing that was good about the 1994 draft was that the central government made it mandatory that before starting any kind of project, an environmental clearance certificate has to be obtained from the government. And this led to the establishment of the Environmental Impact Agency under Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change of the Government of India. It also had provisions to impose penalty or fine if the data submitted by the required party is false. You see, the initial draft was very much in favor of the environmentalists, and the industrialists were beginning to feel the pressure. So it's a good deal for the environmentalist, and the industrialists were beginning to feel the heat. Then in April 1997, the government made changes to the 1994 draft by introducing the concept of public hearing for the first time. Although it was a great move by the government, allowing all stakeholders to participate in the process. The industrialists started feeling more pressure due to this amendment, Again, it's a good deal for the environmentalists, and the industrialists were beginning to feel more heat. 5 years later, in June 2002, the government amended the draft and cleared many projects without giving any environmental clearance certificate. And all these projects were of high-level investment. In other words, if the project was super expensive and a lot of money was invested, those projects were given a free way to operate without any environmental clearance. Maybe the government started feeling pressure from the industrialists, or maybe the industrialists lobbied for it, or it could be so that the government was in a deadlock between the environmentalists and the industrialists, that the final decision went in favor of the industrialist. Or just to be fair and optimistic, maybe the projects were of national economic importance. Whatever would have been the reason, but it was in 2002, the EIA process for the first time got diluted. Because the argument that was given for this is investment should not be a measure of how much environmental or social impact a project can cause. For example, a small mining project can cause great environmental pollution and displacement of people. Anyhow, the 2002 amendment is seen as a dilution of the EIA process. It is considered as an industrialist-friendly amendment. That means this amendment made the environmentalist unhappy and gave industrialists some relief. Next year, that is in February 2003, the government made another amendment. It introduced provisions to conduct more studies, research and inspection of a particular project site in order to make the assessment of that project much better. That means more investigation and studies will lead to more scrutiny and disputes. But on the other hand, more research and studies will lead to greater knowledge in terms of protecting and creating measures for saving sensitive ecosystems. But then it is something that an industrialist wouldn't want, as they may have to face lawsuits, disputes and other consequences. So this amendment was in favor of the environmentalists. That also means the other side, that is the industrialist, started feeling more and more pressure. In the same year, that is in August 2003, the government made more changes to the EIA process by protecting the eco-sensitive areas from getting polluted by any development project. The government stated that any project in a highly polluted area and or within 15-kilometer radius of a sensitive ecosystem protected area like National Park, Biosphere Reserve, etc. would require the environmental clearance from the central government. Now this move by the government strengthened the EIA process in India by showing that the government was committed to protecting natural ecosystem. This amendment came in the wake of the Biodiversity Act 2002. Again, even this amendment went in favor of the environmentalists. And to be fair, you never know tomorrow which area could be designated as an eco-sensitive area, because such possibilities do exist. And that is what is the concern of the industrialist. Then in September 2003, government amended the EIA process by adding a provision that said public hearing was now not required for offshore activities and for activities that are taking place outside a 10-kilometer radius of any sensitive ecosystem or human habitation. If you notice, in August 2003, 15-kilometer radius was set as a boundary for acquiring environmental clearance from the central government. And in this provision, the government removed public hearing clause for any activity that takes place outside 10-kilometer radius. Now you can easily guess that it's a mixed move by the government. On one hand, 15-kilometer was set, and here, beyond 10-kilometer radius, the government is excluding public opinion and wants to deal with it on its own. This will definitely look shady in the eyes of common people and environmentalists. And it has also eased the process of giving environmental clearance. Many also say that the government did not look at the long-term effects of any project. So the 2003 September amendment is seen as a pro-industrialist move. The next change came in July 2005. The government introduced a new provision which said a project can obtain a temporary working permit for up to 2 years without an environmental clearance. The government will review the project on case-to-case basis, and if the government thinks it is safe, then the project could start without an environmental clearance. But the environmental clearance is to be obtained within that 2-year limit. This again is a mixed move by the government. What if a project causes a lot of damage in 2 years' time? And what if the project does well and turns out to be prosperous? but after 2 years' time, the project still does not obtain an environmental clearance, then the government might grant a clearance based on the fact that it doesn't want to hurt the economy by shutting the project. This is called taking pity and granting permission even when the other party did a mistake intentionally. But definitely this move was not appreciated by the environmentalists, and the industrialists got some breathing space. Finally, in the year 2006, there was a new notification that was drafted, which is called the Environmental Impact Assessment 2006. This 2006 notification replaced the 1994 notification. So far, we saw all the changes and amendments that were brought to the 1994 notification. After 12 years, the government decided to create a new notification altogether and replace it with the previous one. The key changes in this notification was that it divided all projects into two categories, Category A and Category B. All Category A projects required clearance from the central government, while Category B projects needed to get their clearance from the state governments. Within Category B, there were two subcategories, B1 and B2. B1 projects required that EIA reports to be made, while B2 projects were completely exempted from the EIA process. It is said that the 2006 draft was on the basis of size or capacity of the project, not based on the level of investment. If you look back at the June 2002 amendment of the 1994 notification, environmental clearance was given based on the level of investment, totally opposite of what you see in 2006 notification. So it's a pro-environmentalist move. Then it also invited public consultation to play an active role. But it was allowed only after the EIA report is submitted. Now this is a mixed move, because after the EIA report is submitted, public consultation might not play a pivotal role. Plus, government also did not define what it means by the term public and who could physically participate in the meetings. Is it the general public, or only locals living in the area were allowed? Finally, the 2006 notification decentralized a lot of process to the state governments. It also reduced the time for conducting EIAs. Previously, it used to take 14 to 19 months. Sometimes it even continued to 21 to 28 months. But after decentralization, the time taken for conducting EIAs reduced to 10 to 14 months. So you see, the government of India was constantly amending the EIA notification. And obviously the idea is to have a strong EIA process that protects the environment and the society from being impacted. Again, let me take you back to the same point. It is very difficult to balance environmental growth or natural conservation with economic development. You can mitigate and conserve to a certain extent by doing cost and benefit analysis. However, in a larger context and in long term, if you have chosen the path of development, it will come with a cost. And that is where the job of politician or policy makers gets tough. Because the government cannot make processes and laws so difficult for the industrialists that they get demoralized to operate. Neither it can allow them to destroy the nature and make everything look shabby. Anyhow, now that brings us to the 2020 draft. If it is finalized, it will then replace the 2006 notification. It is still in the proposal mode. If it is finalized, then it will replace the 2006 notification for all future projects. Now, what are the key points of dispute or concern with this new EIA 2020 draft? The first concern is the post facto approval. Now, what does it mean? It means that the clearances of projects can be given even if they have started construction or they have been in the running phase without securing environmental clearances. This means the government is saying that they will not halt any development plan because that is like hurting the economy. But on the other hand, it also means that any environmental damage caused by the project is likely to be ignored by the government, and the culprits may get away by simply paying a fine which might not be anywhere close to the damages caused to the environment. The second concern is regarding public consultation process. The 2020 draft notification provides for a reduction of the time period from 30 days to 20 days for the public to submit their responses during a public hearing for any application seeking environmental clearance. The problem with this is that reducing time might not be enough and will not be meaningful for any fair public discourse. It's like the government wants to rush and wants to wrap it up as soon as possible. Now, this kind of provisions will definitely make the public develop skepticism towards the whole EIA process. This will over time reduce transparency and credibility. Further, the reduction of time may pose a problem in those areas where information is not easily accessible. Language is also a barrier. For example, rural areas where even today people are not that well aware of the process itself. The third concern is regarding relaxation of monitoring requirements. In the 2006 notification, projects had to submit their compliance report every 6 months to the government. It is a way for the government to check whether or not projects are following the mandatory terms and conditions. However, the 2020 draft requires the promoter to submit a report only once every year. At least previously with 6 months time frame, government can keep an eye on projects, and if there is any concern, it can be handled accordingly. But now if the time frame is increased to 1 year, there can be many unseen, irreversible environmental and social consequences that can be difficult to handle compared to half-year compliance report. And the fourth concern is regarding gaming the system. In other words, what if the government creates a way for the industrialists to bypass or avoid the whole EIA process by simply categorizing a project as strategic? If you see, this is a very important thing, because once a project is categorized as strategic, then the central government gets the power for not letting out any information related to that project out in the public domain. And the irony is, it's the government who will get to decide which project is strategic. And on top of it, this whole idea of categorizing a project as strategic and including it in this draft is also the government's idea. Now the question is, what if that strategic project violates any environmental norms? Who is going to report that? In other words, who is going to go against the government? Further, the draft notification states that the new construction projects up to 150,000 square meters instead of the existing 20,000 square meters do not need detailed scrutiny by the expert committee, nor do they need EIA studies and public consultation. Now this way, the construction industry will be one such beneficiary, because the land space on which they operate is huge, and if the government decides to make that construction industry as strategic, then it will not fall under public scrutiny. Plus, we already know that defense and national security installations have always been an exception. I don't think there's any problem with that. The public understands that. But this new category called strategic is a vague category. It's like one of those laws where you see all the clauses and conditions, and in the end we have one clause that can take down all the above mentioned clauses and conditions. It's like the Article 352 National Emergency that can be used to suspend all your fundamental rights as a citizen. Anyhow, these are the concerns regarding the new EIA 2020 draft notification. It is seen as an attempt to weaken environmental regulation, silence the affected communities, and support the industrialists. But again, I want you to remember this point. The balance between natural conservation and economic development is a difficult task, because both are important. But at the same time, balancing it will always be a challenge.